Ladies and gentlemen, my name is not Total Biscuit, but regardless, I am still here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Age of Empires 2 HD The Forgotten? Now, my name is actually Interjection, and my YouTube channel's most successful series is shoutcasts and commentary for Age of Empires 3. But today, I'm going to be doing something a bit different, and I'll be looking at Microsoft's most recent PC release. I'll be using what should be a very familiar structure brought about by YouTube's #1 PC gaming critic, who goes by the name of Total Biscuit the Cynical Brit, whose channel is linked in the description of my video. Here's the video from the original game. Certainly feeling quite nostalgic right now. It is fairly low resolution, yes, and that is because it's from the original game. Anyway, shall we take a look at this title? Literally, the title of the game. Age of Empires 2, let's start with that. We all know what this is, the iconic strategy game, if you will, the grandfather of RTS, nay, the great-grandfather, the game which defined the genre, or undoubtedly, if you don't agree with that, it is a game which both massively helped build popularity for the genre and had a significant impact on future games in it. It's a PC classic, but anyway, that is what this new title is, or should I say old title. It's a re-release, it's Age of Empires 2, except as we can now see from the title, it's in HD, boasting updated graphics and visuals for high-resolution displays. And of course I'm going to compare the graphics of the original to the HD version, and I'll talk more about this in a moment. But this game is also, again as we can see from the title, an expansion pack in the form of some downloadable content. It's been named The Forgotten, featuring 5 new civilizations with, as you would expect, many new units, buildings and technologies for both the new and existing civilizations. But before I get into the game and show you this, plus several other features and a few more things, I want to take a moment to look at Age of Empires as a series. Come on now, it's among one of the most well-known RTS game franchises out there, but seemed to just disappear off the radar. And I'll continue with that train of thought in a moment. But firstly, here we are, the menu screen in all its glory. I'm actually glad they removed the snowy menu background from the Conquerors. I always thought this looked a lot cleaner. From here though, I guess I'm required to show you a direct comparison to the old game, The Age of Kings. I'm feeling very nostalgic right now. A phenomenal job with reworking the theme music. Credit goes out to Cision and the musicians he found. We'll talk more about Cision later on. Anyway, I was talking about how Age of Empires as a franchise was there, and then all of a sudden it disappeared from the radar, so I guess we will continue. With the release of Age of Empires 2 HD, the entire franchise was put back into the public eye. All of the Age of games have come back onto the metaphorical radar. Age of Empires memes and YouTube videos and of the like have become more popular. Even my own commentary no longer struggles to gain views. This game screams out to us that Microsoft has not quite finished with Age of Empires, that they have been and still are developing it. I can go on, and I will. In 2011, a new Age of Empires title was released, Age of Empires Online, which Total Biscuit featured on his channel. Then in 2013, the HD re-release of Age of Empires 2 came to be, which Total Biscuit did not feature on his channel. Following the release of both of these games though, the Microsoft Age of Empires community team really did start taking their social media seriously, posting regular content on their Facebook and Twitter, gaining thousands of followers and even hosting official live streams for their games, which they'd never done in the past, ever. They even allow highly skilled members of the community to stream their games on their official Twitch channel. I was actually offered a position to do so myself. Anyway, here we are in 2013 with Age of Empires 2 HD, and then a few months later down the line, this expansion is announced, and then here we are, today, almost 14 years after the original release of the Age of Kings and the Conquerors, with the third official expansion pack in this series available on Steam. 14 years! I'll let that sink in. Now, all of this has led to a few questions. Will we see Age of Mythology HD, or even just the original game on Steam, or another expansion for Age of Empires 3, or an Age of Empires 1 remake? The ultimate question is, Age of Empires 4? The official answer is, well, there isn't one, sorry, but in my opinion, they're building hype. That's made abundantly clear in the effort that's gone into growing their following on social media sites. Microsoft is doing something with Age of Empires, and I don't think we've seen the last of it. Now, I've just shown you a fairly in-depth comparison between the original Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 2 HD, and clearly there are some differences. Whilst the HD version does seem to have many very similar models to the old version, with the same level of detail and the same lighting, and as far as I can really see are actually the same 2D models. That's fine though, because if they were changed, you'd upset a lot of people. You might have noticed that the food icon has changed from a slab of meat to a piece of corn, and believe me, that did upset people. Either way though, you can clearly see that the 3D water is an absolutely huge improvement, and the most noticeable improvement is the resolution at which you can run the game in. You can actually run this game across, I don't know, like 3 monitors, or an absolutely huge display, and it would still work just fine without any stretching or pixelation. In fact, I think if you had a monitor so large that it could fit the entire map onto a single screen, then it would actually fit the entire map onto a single screen. The game would let you do that. Don't quote me on that though. Anyway, this game is an expansion pack, so I probably ought to show you some of the new content never seen to Age of Empires 2 before, but before I do that, let's start by taking a look at some of the features that this game has to offer. There's a button at the top of the menu here that allows you to switch between the original HD edition of the game and the Forgotten expansion version of the game. This means you can play multiplayer either on the original game or the Forgotten expansion. Perhaps your friends might not have the expansion, or for whatever reason you might have, you can switch. The multiplayer itself is fully supported by Steam, it operates over Steam, and there's a ranked ELO system in place for competitive play, which is very good. Of course, you have quick search, and you can join a lobby yourself. It's very much like other Age of Empires games in that respect for finding games. However, Age of Empires 2, yes, it has an absolutely huge competitive scene, and if you don't believe me, I'd urge you to check out the YouTube channel, which I've linked very clearly in the description of this video. There's currently a $20,000 tournament happening right now. But the majority of the competitive community actually play Age of Empires 2 The Conqueror's expansion, the original game, and they play that on Voobly, which is a free gaming network that facilitates multiplayer for lots of different games. Really, that's where they've always been, and it really hasn't changed, so perhaps the Forgotten expansion will change that, who knows. There's actually another Age of Empires 2 tournament coming up, which has an even bigger prize pool, and I think it would be quite interesting if that tournament was played on the Forgotten expansion. Perhaps some of the big names in the competitive scene can make that happen. For more information on the competitive scene, check out aoczone.net. Switching between the HD edition and the Forgotten expansion also allows you to play either the original Age of Kings and the Conqueror's expansion campaigns, or allows you to play the brand new Forgotten expansion campaigns. 4 new campaigns, which I imagine will be quite fun. I myself am a few missions into the Dracula campaign, and although it's not voice acted like the old ones, in fact I don't think any of the new ones are, I can safely say that if you do read the dialogue, it is still just as immersive and just as fun as the old ones. Like in the missions, sometimes you have to bring one of the characters to another character so that they can talk, and then you get to read the conversation. Like you click on one character and then it shows you some dialogue, and then to see what the other character has to say, you then have to click on the other character, and then obviously you're kind of doing it at your own pace, and you only click on the next character to see what they have to say when you're ready to. And I think it's quite a clever system in place, even though it isn't voice acted. So far it's given me that true storytelling experience which you would expect from an Age of Empires 2 campaign. The new campaigns are based on real-world history or legends, just like all Age of Empires 2 campaigns have ever been. And in a moment, I'll flash up the in-game description for each campaign, so if you want to read what the missions are about, then I'd recommend pausing the video to read that. I think now, though, I ought to show you the new civilizations, so here we go. Alright, so the 5 new civilizations in this game are the Incas, the Indians, the Italians, the Magyars, and the Slavs. And first of all, I'm going to take a look at the new buildings, the architecture, these new models, and see what they look like. And then I'll move on to those civilizations' unique units, and I'll take a brief look at their tech tree and civilization bonuses, just so that we can consider them from a competitive perspective. But here are some buildings that we can't actually build. This is the Colosseum here, this big one. Looks friggin' epic in my opinion. As I said, not something that we can build, but in the campaign, so it's nice to see some unique buildings in there just for the immersive experience. But if we scroll over to here, we have in blue the Incas and in red the Indians. Now, I'll click on the buildings so that you can see what buildings that they are, and we'll move through them, but they actually share the same architecture, the same models with some of the civilizations that are already in the game. So the Incas here, they look very similar to the Aztecs and the Mayans, as you probably worked out, and that is because they are a Meso civilization. They cannot build stables, and they're going to look fairly similar in that regards. That's all fair enough. And the Indians actually share the same models with, I believe, the Saracens and the Turks and the Persians and those kind of civilizations, which is also fair enough. But we'll move on to some new stuff. Here we see the Italians and the Magyars. Italians quite clearly in green here with the white buildings. Absolutely amazing in my opinion. Just looks so good, especially the walls and the keep. That's just friggin' sexy, man. I like how they kind of share a similar kind of look to the Indian buildings here, but of course that very European feel of being white and stone, and I just think that's great. Also a very good job on the Magyars and also the Slavs, which have the same kind of structures here, the same kind of models. These were actually designed by Cision and his team. Of course, he found some artists. Cision being the developer, or I guess the guy who really led the Forgotten Empires expansion, which was an unofficial mod for this game. And then, of course, Microsoft saw that, and I guess they thought that was great. They got those people on board who originally made the mod, and then they turned it into an official game for the HD version of Age of Empires 2. So there you go, a little bit of backstory. And it looks they kept a lot of the same mods, which is quite nice. Sorry, a lot of the same models is what I meant to say, which is quite nice. I'll take a look at units next, and of course that includes the unique unit. Alright, so here we have the brand new unique units for the new civilizations in Age of Empires 2 HD, the Forgotten. And I'll start on the far left here. I'll click on the unit, tell you its name, which civilization it belongs to, and how it functions in the game, what it does. So on the far left here, the Kamyuk is an Incas unit and is trained at the castle. He is essentially a melee unit armed with a giant spear/pike, so as you would expect from Age of Empires logic, is very strong against cavalry. And since that spear is so big, they actually gave him a ranged attack, meaning that not in the sense that an archer has a ranged attack where he shoots a bow and arrow at range, but he actually has a melee attack that can, attack at a short range, so he can attack units that are nearby him, not just next to him. So in groups, the Kamyuk is going to be really strong against cavalry, going to be absolutely able to tear through cavalry, since it's not just the units on the front lines that are going to be able to get into combat. The ones behind the guys on the front line will also be able to start doing damage straight away, meaning that these are, of course, going to be quite a nice unit. The Incas also get another unit, which I believe they can train from the archery range, named the Slinger. He is, of course, an archer-type unit, a ranged unit. He has a ranged attack, of course, which is actually good against infantry, similar to a hand cannoneer in his function. Of course, Incas being a Meso civilization, they don't have gunpowder, so they won't be able to train hand cannoneers. So I guess they get this guy to kind of balance it out and give them, of course, a unit that does have that function. Anyway, we'll move on to India. And here we see the Elephant Archer, not to be confused with, of course, the Persian War Elephant, but essentially a very similar unit, but can actually attack at range, not melee. So, a ranged, tanky elephant unit. very strong, very tanky, as I say. Anyway, they also have the Imperial Camel. Now, a lot of other civilizations do get camels. Of course, camels are a cavalry unit, or shall we say camelry unit, which are actually units that are good against other cavalry. As I said, other units do get camels, but India are the only civilization here that gets the Imperial upgrade, so they can put their camels all the way up to the Imperial status, which is certainly going to make camels more viable. Anyway, we'll take a look at the Italian units. Here we have the Genoese crossbowman. The Genoese crossbowman has bonus damage against cavalry, I believe, so it's a fairly interesting concept for an archer, for a ranged type unit, considering most ranged units are actually weak to cavalry. So there you go, a nice play on the combat triangle there. Here we have a ranged unit that is good against cavalry. They also have the Condottiero, which is a unit that if you have an Italian on your team, you can train this guy from the barracks. Everyone can train him, so that's pretty cool. Here we have the Magyar Hussar, and the Magyar Hussar, definitely a fairly nice unit. It is a fairly cheap unit, but for the stats that it gives you, it is probably worthwhile doing, and I'll talk more about the Magyar Hussar in a moment when I get onto tech trees. I'm going to go fairly in depth into one civilization just to give you some sample knowledge of kind of Age of Empires 2 strategy and tactics, but this guy, we'll talk about him in a moment. Here though, here we have the Boyar, by far one of the most strongest units, although I guess the tanky Elephant Man is of course going to be quite strong, but I quote you from ZeroEmpires here, who actually have a video in the description which if you click on will take you to a 40-minute video that very, very well explains everything that is brand new to Age of Empires in this forgotten HD version. But I quote you here, the Boyar, basically a Teutonic knight on a horse, extremely well armoured and of course very strong. He is a Slav unit. That concludes the brand new units. And I am victorious! Just in time! Alright, so let's take a look at the Magyars as a civilization in Age of Empires 2. Here we have their tech tree, which shows us all of the units, buildings, and technologies that they have access to. And I also have their civilization bonus, which is of course unique to them. And with these, we can look at the Magyars and kind of see where they excel in a game of Age of Empires 2 and the best ways that they can be played in. I will cover the other civilizations briefly, the new ones that is, though I won't go into quite as much detail. Now, Magyars, by far my favourite civilization that has been added. Their bonuses are that their villagers kill wolves with a single strike. They get the forging, iron casting, and blast furnace upgrades absolutely free, though it does require you to have fully constructed a blacksmith. Now, I'm not sure if this means that the upgrades, you receive them instantly once you have built the blacksmith and are in the relevant age, or if it means that you still have to research them, they just don't cost anything. Either way, still a very good bonus for the civilization, certainly going to help them out quite a lot. Now, they have Scout Cavalry, Light Cavalry, and Hussars, which cost 10% less resources. And if we look here, Scout Cavalry, Light Cavalry, and Hussars are all in the same line. They're actually the same unit. They just have a name change and a unit stats upgrade. You know, stats that go up when they are upgraded here. They all cost nothing but food. So that upgrade, 10% less food, going to save you a lot of food. Obviously going to help them out. Their unique unit is the Magyar Hussar, which is by no means the strongest unit. I did show you it. Is a very cost-effective unit, though. For the resources you're paying, you're certainly getting its worth out of them. Now, their unique technologies are mercenaries here, which decreases the cost of the Magyar Hussar so that it does not cost any coin. Now, a Magyar Hussar costs 80 food and 20 coin. And you might say, well, saving 20 coin, or should I say gold, since this is Age of Empires 2, not Age of Empires 3, that you're not really saving a lot there. But in Age of Empires 2, the gold does run out. And in a 1v1, you can't conduct a trade. So once it's gone, it's gone. So if you have a unit that doesn't cost coin and is certainly very good and cost effective, then you're certainly going to do quite well later on in the game if the game goes on that long. So definitely a nice thing to have there for them, certainly going to help them out. Their other upgrade is Recurve Bow, which increases Cavalry Archer range by 1. By the looks of it, they do have very strong cavalry archers. The heavy cavalry archer upgrade there available. They also have Thumb Ring and Parthian Tactics as technologies. And their blacksmith, they have, I believe, all of the archer upgrades and cavalry upgrades as well. In fact, in their entire blacksmith, the only upgrade they are missing is plate mail armor here. So certainly a very strong blacksmith. Their team bonus is that foot archers Sorry, their foot archers have 2 more line of sight, and that is in effect for everybody on the team. Now, as a civilization, if their villagers can kill wolves in a single strike, this means that if you're sending a forward villager to build a forward base near your opponent, of course you could send it over there, and if any wolves attack you on the way, you can very easily deal with them. It means you can put up either a stable or an archery range as soon as you hit up to feudal, or even a barracks in age 1 if you're going for a drush. No problem at all. And then, of course, you get those units into your opponent's base a bit quicker, and you can be a bit more aggressive. So, a nice bonus there. They get forging for free, providing they have built a blacksmith, and of course, that is going to increase the attack damage of your foot soldiers and your cavalry by 1. So, certainly going to make being aggressive early on much more worthwhile. The scout cavalry actually cost less food, so that combined with everything else, a scout rush with the extra damage is going to be very, very viable. If you can kill some settlers early on, then you're certainly going to be in a good position before you go up to castle age. That's how I play the Magyars. I'd be quite aggressive with scout cavalry. Now, as I said, their Magyar Hussar, if you get that upgrade so that they do not cost any coin, they have a very nice unit to train later on in the game that is very easy to spam once, of course, the gold has run out. At the archery range, they do have all of the upgrades for archers all the way up to arbalest. They don't have hand cannoneer, fair enough. They have elite skirmisher as well. So you're going to be able to train some fairly nice archers, and you know the elite skirmisher here doesn't cost any coin, so it'll be a very nice unit that you can spam. They also get halberdier, that's all the way upgraded, though they don't get squires, fair enough, and we saw they didn't get that 1 upgrade in the blacksmith, but certainly some fairly alright trash units, and especially that Magyar Hussar, so late game, not too bad either. Now let's take a look at their economic upgrades over here. They have all of the mill upgrades, so farming is by no means a problem. So spamming, of course, cavalry that cost nothing but food, certainly going to be fairly easy. Though that does mean you do need a lot of castles. Of course, they are unique units that are trained at a castle, and you have to have castles to build them, so you're going to have a lot of castles. They don't have stone shaft mining, and that could be an issue late game if you want to build lots of castles for that. They do, however, have, of course, both the gold mining upgrades and all of the wood line is full as well. They have got a very well-equipped tech tree for their economy. They don't really excel that well at the university here. They lack fortified wall, they don't have architecture, they don't have keep or bombard tower, so, you know, fortified wall, architecture, your walls and buildings generally are not going to have as much HP as perhaps some of the other civilizations. Your keep, bombard tower, you don't have those either, so defending with those kind of buildings is certainly going to be less of an option to you. If you're on the defensive with this civilization, it's not going to perform quite as well. As I said, the blacksmith, only the 1 upgrade they're missing. They have reasonable siege. They have the onager, capped ram, heavy scorpion. They don't have a siege onager or a siege ram. Don't get those last 2 upgrades, nor do they get the bombard cannon. But certainly a reasonable access to these siege equipment. Of course, they get trebuchets like every other civilization at the castle once you hit Imperial. So that's not too much of an issue. On the water, by no means bad either. They have upgrades all the way to galleon. They also get a cannon galleon, which I find rather strange, since they didn't actually get the regular cannon on land. They don't get elite cannon galleon though, fair enough, but not going to struggle too much on water. They don't have camels either, but certainly do have strong cavalry. They have, of course, bloodlines. And as we saw, husbandry, well, there as well. As we saw earlier, the upgrades here, all of the cavalry ones. And also they get those blast furnace and forging and that kind of thing for 3. So paladins, definitely not too bad. Perhaps you can scout rush, transition into knights once you hit the old castle age. Now, that's about as in-depth as I can go, because my knowledge of Age of Empires 2 is not by any means as strong as my knowledge of Age of Empires 3. As I said, I am predominantly an Age of Empires 3 player. Anyway, let's take a look at the next civilization. Alright, so let's take a quick look at all of the civilizations now. Here we have the Incas. They are an infantry civilization. They start with a free llama, which is very nice because, as you can remember, in Age of Empires 2, livestock do not fatten over time, like in Age of Empires 3. They have a set amount of resources in them, and that doesn't change. So that llama you actually eat straight off the bat. It's nice because you get that extra food, which other players won't have. meaning you can hit up perhaps a little bit sooner, and it also means that your settlers can be doing something useful a bit sooner since you have that llama to eat straight away. Normally in Age of Empires 2 you'll find your sheep first of all, and that's the first thing you do, find the sheep and eat them, but you have to scout for those, so whilst other players are scouting to find their first sheep, you're already eating your llama, and then of course once the llama's finished you'll probably have found your sheep by then, and then you can eat those. Their second bonus is that villages are affected by blacksmith upgrades, which is fairly interesting. And that their houses support more population than normal. In fact, they support 10 population. Their buildings also cost 15% less stone. So stone walls, fortified walls, etc. Their guard towers and what have you, the towers, the castles, all going to be cheaper and much easier to mass. Perhaps the civilization is stronger with regards to being defensive. Their unique units, the Kamyuk, the guy with the giant spear that has a slight range, and they also have the Slinger, which is, of course, that archer-type unit with the similar function to a hand cannoneer, though they don't actually have hand cannoneer since it is a Meso civilization, does not get gunpowder, cannot build a stable. As you can see, all of the cavalry stuff is blocked out since they do not have access to any cavalry at all. They do however, have eagle warriors, which other civilizations don't have. But anyway, their unique technology, the Andean sling, means that skirmishers and slingers do not have a minimum range. Normally, skirmishers, there has to be a little bit of a gap between the two units before they can throw their spear. They can't, like, fight next to a unit. They have a minimum range, but this reduces that to nothing, so they can just fight next to another unit, which is going to make trash units like the Elite Skirmisher more versatile, especially late game, but, you know, also early game as well. Their second bonus here, couriers, means Kamyuks, slingers, and eagles move 10% more quickly. Now, eagles are quite a fast-moving unit anyway, and this is going to make them even more useful for raiding and just micro generally, since of course they will move more quickly, and you know, in a fight they can get into combat with the units you want them to get into combat with more quickly. Their slingers, 10% faster. That is nice. Kamyuks, of course, having you know, that mass kind of ability to bring down cavalry since they have that slight range. Being able to move faster means they'll be able to keep up with cavalry, perhaps kill a few more before the cavalry get away, that kind of thing. Their team bonus, farms build 50% more quickly. Anyway, let's move on to the Indians here. We have a camel and gunpowder civilization. The villagers cost 5% less resources in the Dark Age, 10% less in the Feudal Age, 15% less in the Castle Age, and 20% less in the Imperial Age. Those do not stack, I believe, but it certainly means that settlers, or villagers rather, since this is Age of Empires 2, are going to be easier to train, cheaper to train, and it will leave you more resources left over to either click up sooner to the next stage or to train military units with. All very nice. Their fishermen work 15% faster and carry plus 15 extra resources. Now, I don't know if this applies to fishing boats, which would obviously then be gathering food more quickly, and they'd be able to collect more food before they actually need to deposit it in the dock, or if that just applies to settlers. But either way, the same bonus applies, as I said. Their camels have +1 armor and +1 pierce armor. They are the only civilization that get Imperial camels here, and this combined with their team bonus that camels have +5 attack versus buildings certainly makes camels much more useful. Normally camels are only good at countering other cavalry, but here perhaps, you know, going to be a bit more versatile and seen a little bit more, and that is especially true since they do not have knights and therefore cavalier or paladin, etc. But a nice bonus there. Their unique unit, as I've shown you, the elephant archer, and also the Imperial Camel, as I just said. Unique technologies, the Sultans, which means all gold production is 10% quicker, and Shatnagi, which means hand cannoneers have +1 extra range. That's always nice, since of course a unit with more range means that you can shoot, run away, shoot, run away, shoot, run away a lot more easily. And of course, you know, it can get into combat sooner since it doesn't have to walk quite as far, can escape more easily. It's just easier to micro range is a nice thing there. And as their team bonus here, that affects other players as well. The camels have +5 attack for everyone on the team. Really nice. Anyway, let's move on to the next civilization here, the Italians, an archer and naval civilization. Advancing to the next age costs 10% less resources. So this means that, you know, aging up, you're going to get there a lot sooner. So a fast castle probably going to be on the cards, definitely Very nice. And even a drush, since, you know, getting those first few militia out, you can do some damage, and it's not going to affect you quite as hard. You're still going to be able to click up in quite a reasonable time, I suppose. Their dock technologies cost 50% less resources. Their fishing ships have +2 line of sight, so some nice dock stuff there. I guess we can take a brief look at what's going on at the dock. A very nice dock there, of course, have galleys all the way up to galleon. They also have cannon galleon, an elite cannon galleon, and also all of these upgrades, you know, are cheaper, so I don't know if this civilization is disadvantaged when they're not on the water, because of course if you're playing a land map, then these upgrades, these bonuses don't come into play, but certainly going to help them out. Their gunpowder units cost 15% less, and that's nice as well. Things like hand cannoneer going to be cheaper. Their unique unit, the Genoese crossbowman, of course the crossbowman, which is good against cavalry, will have a little bit of a play on the combat triangle as I showed you, and also the condottiero, the infantry unit. When their team bonus is the condottiero, available in the barracks for all civilizations. So if you have an Italian on the team, you can all train that unit, which is very nice. Their unique technology is Pavis. Genoese crossbowmen have an extra 1 armor and pierce armor, and their Silk Road means that trade units cost 15% or 50% less. So perhaps things like trading, you know, the trade cogs on the water, perhaps a water trading route will be more viable here, especially since the Italians have a very nice ability to kind of control the water with the extra dock, the dock technologies costing less, and having a very nice tech tree with the water as well. And also trading carts. Don't forget those either. Moving on to the Slavs. Of course, we've already looked at the Magyars. The Slavs here, infantry and siege civilization. Their farmers work 15% faster. They get tracking for free, which is this upgrade here, which means all of your infantry have 2 extra line of sight. Might make drushing a little bit more viable, though I'm not sure if this comes into effect in the feudal age, but if it is in the discovery age, wow, that's Age of Empires 3. In the Dark Ages, that's the one. Yeah, in the Dark Age, then it means militia are going to be able to see villages more easily because they've got extra range. So a drush might be a little bit nicer there as well. Their siege workshop units cost 15% less. So siege definitely more viable. Their unique unit, the Boyar, very strong cavalry unit there. Unique technology, orthodoxy. Monks have extra armor, and Druthinisna, infantry damage adjacent units, so kind of doing area damage, that kind of concept in Age of Empires 3. And their military buildings provide +5 population, which is fairly interesting. Everyone on the team, when you put up a barracks or an archery range or something, everyone on the team gets an extra 5 population. And, you know, in a 4v4, if everyone's putting up those buildings, then house is certainly going to be less of an issue for everyone on the team. Alright, so that concludes my analysis on the civilizations, but perhaps you would like a more in-depth analysis and possibly a more accurate analysis. So if you're eager for that, then head over to the video which I've linked in the description of this video. It will take you to a video by ZeroEmpires, and he plays the game. He's very good at the game, knows exactly what he's talking about, and goes into every civilization very, very in-depth, and I've linked that video so you can go check that out. But here's the last few things which I haven't covered. We can now build palisade gates. Whereas before we could only build stone gates, so there you go, that's palisade gates for you. We now have updated history here, so if I click on, I don't know, let's go find a new civilization, the Indians. We get that cool intro music, which of course plays at the beginning of every game, depending on which civilization you are. There you go, there's the one for the Mongols. But you can go read about the history of the new civilizations, which is fairly interesting. What else do we have? Let's start a game here, and we can see what age the players are in, which is a fairly nice addition. Here it says Interjection. If you press F4 on your keyboard, the score pops up and disappears. My name's Interjection, so it says I'm in the Dark Age there, whereas before it never used to say that in the original game. So you can tell what age your allies and opponents are in, which I think is a needed feature, because in Age of Empires 3 we had that feature, and honestly, the game would be so much worse without it. I just think you need that information. I don't know, I mean, there'll probably be a lot of Age of Empires 2 purists who disagree with me, but that is a feature that is now in the game. There you go, I've just shown it to you. Another feature is the attack move. Now, if I select my scout, it's quite hard to show with just a scout, but we have an official attack move. The hotkey is tab, so if I click tab here, and then click on the floor, he'll go to that location and attack the closest unit, the closest enemy unit to him. And if you have like 50 knights selected, and then you obviously press tab and then click on the floor, they'll go to the location, and each knight will find the closest unit. Every unit gets into combat quickly, and that is a feature that is in a lot of RTS games that's never been in Age of Empires 2. People have actually been using the patrol feature. I'm not sure how they use it. I don't play the game myself, but I know that somehow they use the patrol feature as an attack move, but now they no longer need to do that. We have an official attack move. So, the last thing I need to show you is the workshop. If I quit out of the game entirely, and then load it back up again, here we can see the workshop, and if I click that, and I accept and such, then in here I can actually install a bunch of mods very, very easily. Stuff like aesthetic mods, you know, change the way things look, texture packs, as you can see here, improved 2D water textures, and you can rate them and stuff, and you can find some very nice mods that might make the game a little bit more enjoyable. Stuff like custom campaigns, maps, anything you can think of as a mod. I'm pretty sure that is what this is all about, and it's just a literally click to install, and then you know, it's really simple to uninstall as well. But that, guys, concludes my review on the Age of Empires 2 HD, the Forgotten Expansion. Now, I know Total Biscuit does not do reviews, he's a first impressionist, but, you know, I kind of had to steal the structure, WTF Is, because that's something that people would probably watch more than, yeah, Age of Empires 2 review. So, even though this is, you know, more of a review than it is a first impression critique, I'm sorry, Total Biscuit, if you're watching this. Not that he would ever watch this, I just can't see that happening. But, yes, thank you very much for watching. You've been listening to Interjection. I don't play this game, but I'm very happy, very, very happy to see that stuff is being done with Age of Empires by Microsoft. I'll see you next time.